Hi, I'm SkyPointWX.com's weather analyst Andrew Fleck for a Friday's weather pattern outlook. And what we're going to be looking at is the weather pattern coming into this weekend, the early part of next week, and then the late part 7 days from now into late next week. So I think this is kind of the time now where October you're still kind of seeing the dominant warm periods, but November is when you start getting into the pattern where we're now sitting down here. We're almost edging on December here, and we need to figure out where this pattern is going to lay itself. And the big question today is on the discussion is whether are we going to be seeing across the weather model of it showing a finally consistent pattern, or are we going to continuously see that every week or so, same pattern for 2 weeks, and then a change up. So what I'm going to try to look at here is maybe something that we could maybe see different than what we've been seeing for the past month or so, with a 2-week pattern and then it changes. So let's first go into the GFS 12Z this afternoon and see what it has for this weekend. Well, it has a pretty dominant high pressure moving just across the east. It's going to be really warm, I think, and definitely drier. It might be a nice weekend across the east. Bigger ridge actually comes across, though, the Midwest, and that'll push then across the east too by Sunday and then into Monday. And you look up here and you can see some cold air trying to come down across the northwestern half of the United States, but you just kind of wonder, when is this really going to happen? We've kind of seen this for the past months or so. We've had the high pressure stick out off the coast, and they've just hold their ground. And when a trough or cold air tries to come, it gets booted back west and north and is unable to come east. And the highs have been killing the east this year for seeing colder weather and such. But I mean, seeing snow right now over the east and colder weather is really nothing to really bite out right now, being it early November. But at least seeing the consistent temperatures is, I think, the thing that people are just a little worried about. Then as we go into looking around I think this is Monday or Tuesday next week, we have then a strong high pressure come down and another high pressure, not a storm, but a high pressure comes down. What that's going to do is lock down close to the central part of the United States, and that is then when Tropical Storm Ida in the Gulf is going to try to be now reaching north into the Gulf states. And what I really don't like about this whole setup is you have a high pressure coming down. It's going to kind of slant down like this. And when you have a high and a low coming down very close to each other, you're going to get tightening millibars, and that also can be a very scary indication of intensifying. And I'm sure no one across the Gulf states or the Gulf wants to be seeing that, because that is a good indication of even more strengthening across the Gulf with Tropical Storm Ida. We already have areas of watches about to be spread out in the next day or so, and we're talking about already looking at the weather models, more than 2 inches of rain possible across that area. And as I've been saying for the past few days, this area is way beyond saturation and cannot take it anymore. And there's always that mystery in the Gulf. When a storm enters the Gulf, you don't know what it's going to do. So I would really be worried across the Gulf, just looking at the pattern with the high coming down, compressing the storm, tightening the storm. It's just something that I would really keep an eye on. Then as we go into next week, 7 days from now, you then see that storm move out of here. High pressure off the coast, extending itself again across the east. So like I was saying, when the cold air tries to punch eastward, it can't, because you have the blocking forcing it not able to. And then what that does is that wraps the cold air back up into Canada, and the east never gets a cold shot. So that's been pretty much the life story for this past month throughout the East Coast, and actually into October as well. So looking at maybe future pattern consistently, it doesn't look that way. In fact, we seem to be going into more of an inconsistent pattern than maybe a consistent pattern. It's fine. We still have another 10 days to really saw it out and really see if the pattern can really finally show itself, where we can finally get the cold air out in here, get the warm air out, get the blocking out of here, get the blocking where it's supposed to be and not where it's not supposed to be. So again, it's just one of those times where pretty interesting. All summertime we're seeing colder and wetter positions across the east and very warmer and drier condition across the west, and that's vice versa in the fall. So that's quite interesting. The west is getting something that they're not normally used to be seeing across fall, and the big question is wintertime. But again, give it 10 days. You got to see really exactly if we get a storm in here that can really shake up the whole pattern and really bring us into winter. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a storm that can really come in and really bring itself in. And I think the only way that's going to happen is if we have a major block somewhere to really cram up the pattern, or a major storm. That's the only way I see this happening, at least right now. Now, looking at the weather models, we saw what we saw. But let's go to the NAO. NAO is the weather forecasting for the east, and as you can see here, it's positive, and it's actually going to be going negative by the 10th or so. So again, that's maybe a good indication of maybe when to wait to see if anything pops up on the weather models that hasn't been showing today. Maybe next week into mid next week, to see if maybe something different changes up based on what the NAO is showing. The AO, the Arctic Oscillation, forecasting a very, very high peak right now. It's going to be dropping by tonight, and then by the 10th it either goes negative or it goes positive. So the AO and the NAO kind of on that same train, trying to decide if it goes positive or negative. And then as we go into the PNA, this gives you the western United States weather. It's just a little bit of a ridge now, but it's going to be going into a trough very, very soon, probably by the next day or so. And that's pretty much a good indication, just given the pattern that I discussed throughout this video tonight. So all in all, we seem very inconsistent with the weather pattern. It's going to kind of have the stages of 2-week patterns, kind of cold for maybe a week, then it warms up, then it cools down again for that second week. You might have a storm on the first week, dry the second week, then you have a storm again on that second week. So that's been the pattern. So I'm looking for a real consistent pattern. And I've looked across the globe, and I've seen the blocking, and there is some significant blocking way off into the Eastern Europe regions, and I think it's going to be a matter of time, maybe a 10 to 14 day pattern to maybe when that gets here. So I think that's going to be probably the time period where you're going to maybe start seeing the seasonable weather that a lot of folks have been kind of waiting for. So I'd give it a good 10 to 14 days. Other than that, I'd really enjoy your weather, because if you don't, you're not going to be having such a good 2 weeks. So enjoy it, and I will talk to you guys possibly early into the week on Monday, just to see how our weather pattern's doing. Look forward to my discussions, written discussions on my page. I'm going to discuss a few things if things start kind of splitting away or changing up or giving a curveball. So we'll have to talk about that if things do indeed take that turn. If they don't, we'll just have to wait and see. So I am SkyPointWX.com's weather analysis, Standard Fleck. Have a nice evening, and I'll talk to you guys soon.